Hello everybody, hope you're doing well and thanks for joining us for another video. Now, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you may have already heard the rather exciting news that I posted a few weeks back. In December, I will be heading all the way to Antarctica to take part in what is being dubbed the final experiment. And there's already been a lot of reaction to this whole thing. So in this video, I wanted to cover what the final experiment is, how I'm intending on contributing to it, and also what the current state of play is for everyone involved. For those not familiar with the final experiment, this is the brainchild of Will Duffy, who lives in Colorado. At the start of the year, Will became a pastor for his church, but before that he had rather a successful career in finance. And what he's proposed to try and settle the argument once and for all of if the Earth is flat or a globe is to pay for two people, one from either side of the argument, to go to Antarctica, primarily to see if there is a 24-hour sun or not. This point of a 24-hour sun has been a key difference between flat and globe models. Now, on the globe, due to the tilt of the Earth, it experiences periods where the sun doesn't set around both north and south poles, and these periods of 24-hour suns occur in the summers of the respective hemispheres. Now, on a flat Earth, it's pretty easy to explain a 24-hour sun around the North Pole because the sun is just circling closer to the middle. But a 24-hour sun in Antarctica presents major issues. Because if I'm standing in one part of Antarctica, at some point during a 24-hour period, the sun would be on the complete opposite side of Earth, and yet somehow still visible. But there would be a period of complete nighttime in a part of the Earth directly between myself and the sun. Not only that, but the ground position of the sun never goes further south than the Tropic of Capricorn, which is around 23.5 degrees south of the equator. So, for an observer standing in Antarctica, even if the sun were to remain visible in the sky at all times, it should always be to the north of the observer, between around northeast to northwest. It should never reach even directly east or west of the observer, much less appearing towards the south for the observer. So, this obviously should be a pretty surefire way to show whether we live on a globe or on a flat Earth. And it's even been a point that many prominent flat earthers have previously brought up as an easy way to tell the difference.
Depending how far south the observer is, the sun should be seen for several days or weeks, never fully setting, just like it does in the north. In reality, however, there is never 24-hour sunlight anywhere in Antarctica at any time of year.
Now, let's say we are trying to prove the globe or trying to prove it's flat. Should be very, very easy, right? I mean, on a globe, we would have a 24-hour sun in the southern summer. That means that the sun would circle the continent. That's quite different from the flat Earth model where the sun circles the entire Earth from above, and since Antarctica is around the outside, well, that doesn't include a circling sun, at least not around you at the bottom continent.
You mentioned the sun, right? Like the idea is, yeah, if you see the sun in the sky for 24 hours, that's what the globe predicts, and how would the flat Earth explain that? But that's not what happens.
One of the arguments that people give is on a flat Earth, you can't have a 24-hour sun, a midnight sun in Antarctica, and I totally agree. But there is no midnight sun in Antarctica.
Let me and you go to Antarctica, spend a week there in the summer, and let's see if the sun does a 360-degree circle all the way around us. If so, it's a ball. But if the sun comes in this way and then leaves that way, then it's not. It is what we say it is.
However, they'd usually then follow that up with claims along the lines of saying that the public aren't allowed to go and freely explore Antarctica and that people aren't allowed to go any further than about 60 degrees south latitude, which would then make it impossible to test whether there's a 24-hour sun. And the videos which we already have from people who've been to Antarctica and filmed the 24-hour sun get dismissed as fake. So, Will's aim with the final experiment is to send a person from either side to go and observe and document what the sun does in Antarctica during summer there. And obviously, having one from either side allows the results to be kept honest. And Will offered the place for the pro-globe side to myself, and I gladly accepted. So my aim for all of this is obviously first and foremost to document what the sun does, and assuming that it behaves the way we'd expect to see based on a globe, I also aim to try and cover off as many of the flat earth excuses that I can think of. For example, I've already seen some people question how would we know that we're actually in Antarctica? Well, this isn't some hash trip that Will's just throwing together where we're just going to get dumped in the middle of nowhere by ourselves. Will is actually just buying tickets for an annual excursion to Antarctica, which is organised by a company called ALE, or Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions. They have their own planes which fly from Punta Arenas in southern Chile, and the expedition that will be on stays at their camp in Union Glacier, which is around 80 degrees south latitude. We'll be there from the 14th to the 18th of December. So the first step for me will obviously be getting from the UK to Punta Arenas to meet up with ALE. However, there are no direct flights for that. All the flights that I've seen so far fly from the UK to Chile's major airport in Santiago and would then require a short connection flight to Punta Arenas before heading to Antarctica, and then doing the whole thing again in reverse for getting home. And ALE suggests that we book our personal flights to and from Chile to be 2 to 3 days either side of the expedition date, just to avoid any risks of potentially missing flights. So that would mean arriving and staying in Chile 2 days before and after the flights to and from Antarctica. So we'd be in no doubt that we will be setting off with ALE from southern Chile. Now, a compass on the plane will tell us if we're flying south, but there's nowhere other than Antarctica near southern Chile that is completely snow and ice. The nearest other possibility that I can think of would be Greenland, and that's 8,000 miles to the north. Getting there would involve roughly a 14.5-hour flight that would go over the whole of South America and the North Atlantic without any of us actually noticing, and then arriving in Greenland in December, when it's mostly in darkness due to that being the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. Some people have then argued that a 24-hour sun wouldn't actually prove anything because we can't freely explore Antarctica. Except you wouldn't need to. There is no location that far south on a flat Earth which would allow for the sun to have its ground position north of the observer and yet appear in the south. Roaming around Antarctica is not going to change that. As long as there is one location in Antarctica that has a full 24-hour sun doing a 360-degree loop around us, that completely goes against the flat Earth concept. I've even seen people suggest that the sun appearing in the south could be a reflection off the firmament. Well, reflections create mirror images. So to check for this, I'll be taking along a telephoto lens and a strong ND filter. This will allow me to cut out all of the glare and see the sunspots. This way we can compare the orientation of the spots whilst the sun is in the north versus the south to see if they are being flipped at all, or if they shift at any point during the day. This will also open up the possibility for other people in different parts of the world to do the same thing and compare how the spots appear in different parts of the world. I.e., if someone in North America and someone in Australia view the sunspots around the same time, then on a globe we'd expect to see the spots in North America rotated around 180 degrees compared to those viewing in the southern hemisphere, similar to how the moon's orientation changes. Now, clouds could potentially obscure the views of the sunspots. However, if this does happen, even with moderate cloud, this ND filter will still allow us to get a clear view of the sun itself so we can observe if its size changes at any point whilst in different directions. On a flat Earth, we'd expect the size of the sun to vary as it moves towards and away from us, whereas on a globe, we'd expect it to remain a pretty consistent size throughout the day. There has obviously also been suggestions that any videos that we do take and present showing a 24-hour sun will have been faked in some way. Some have obviously said CGI, others have even suggested that we'll just record a 24-hour sun in advance from the northern hemisphere. i.e. that right about now someone is taking footage of the 24-hour sun in the Arctic and that will then apparently try and pass that off as the footage from Antarctica. So to combat that, I've had a few ideas. Red's Rhetoric has suggested taking an Insta360 camera, which will allow for a single 360-degree view to be captured so we can see everything in all directions. I also plan on setting up at some point another camera that would have a view of the 360 camera so that we can be seen being near the 360 camera and that the two vantage points can be seen to match up. Or if I'm taking any footage, then I'll try and place a second camera viewing the first camera from behind so that you can see the actual footage being captured directly on the camera screen. Now, with regards to verifying that the footage is being recorded in December and not being faked at some other time of the year earlier in the Northern Hemisphere, ideally we'll host a live stream on YouTube. That would work best. And according to Will, the camp at Union Glacier either currently is or soon will be serviced by Starlink satellites. This will allow for internet access. However, it's unknown at the moment if there will be sufficient bandwidth for us to actually run a live stream. So, as alternatives, just in case there isn't enough bandwidth for doing a live stream, we could record ourselves watching and engaging with a relevant live stream that's happening at that time whilst we're in Antarctica. So, for example, if there are any flat earthers or globers who live stream on, say, December 16th, and we record ourselves in Antarctica watching that stream, commenting on it and showing the comments that are happening at that time, that offers a pretty easy way to verify that the footage was recorded there and then. It'll work best if it's a flat earthers live stream, because obviously we couldn't have CGI'd that in advance. As a backup though, just in case there's no internet available at all in Antarctica, we could probably download or capture a live stream that takes place while we're in Chile the day before we fly out to Union Glacier, and then again video ourselves in Antarctica watching and engaging with that stream. Now, none of that should actually really matter though, because in both models, standing in the Arctic, the sun moves across the sky from the left to the right, whereas in Antarctica, it moves from the right to the left. So to fake the footage in the Arctic would mean then we'd have to reverse the footage, which, as long as we provide views where there are people moving around, that should cover off that claim. And if there are any other potential arguments that anyone can think of, regardless of which side of the fence you're on, then please do reach out to me so that I can try and come up with ways to account for that. Interestingly though, despite many flat earthers saying for years that a 24-hour sun in Antarctica cannot happen on a flat earth and that they don't believe the 24-hour sun exists, since this final experiment was announced, several individuals seem to have started to try and argue that a 24-hour sun in Antarctica wouldn't disprove flat Earth, which I personally think speaks volumes. We are 6 months away from going, and people are already trying to claim a 24-hour sun could now happen on a flat Earth. Not that they don't think it will happen, or that it could happen, but it will only be in one part of the sky, it's not going to loop all the way around us like we've seen in videos before. They seem to already be trying to crowbar a globe prediction into a flat Earth model, which suggests to me these individuals are fully expecting to see a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. We'd never get away with that on the globe argument. I mean, Where's Wally has already crunched the numbers for Union Glacier during those dates and confirmed the globe model predicts not only will the sun not set during those 5 days, but that it won't get within around 13 degrees of the horizon. If I'd now tried claiming that, well, the sun might well set, or it might only be visible in the north, but that wouldn't disprove the globe, I'd have flat earthers ridiculing me into the middle of the next century. Now, at the time of recording, the question of who is going is still unanswered. Will ran some polls on his channel for which glober and which flat earther people would like to see take part. Now, I won the poll for the globe. I'm not sure if I should be paranoid that people seem so eager to try and get rid of me. And the flat earther poll was won by Dave Weiss, aka Flat Earth Dave. He's promptly rejected the offer, although he's since appeared a few days later on InfoWars arguing that the 24-hour sun is all fake and that we can't go there.
Isn't it weird that no one has circumnavigated south? Isn't it weird that they faked the 24-hour sun in Antarctica? Isn't it weird that there's there's webcams in Antarctica where that you can watch the shadows go around, it's going, and then all of a sudden, it skips 8 hours.
Which is laughable. The offer has since been passed on to Jeren from Jerenism, who does actually seem to be considering it, but he's stipulated he doesn't want to go by himself. He wants another flat earther to go, namely Austin Whitsitt. Will has tried to accommodate this request by stating that Austin could take Will's place on the trip, so Will would then be paying for me, Jeren, and Austin to go. However, Austin seems to have turned down that offer and seems adamant that he should take my spot and that he, Jeren, and Will should go instead. Now, there has been a bit of an update since I recorded this video. The other day, Austin had a debate with Professor Dave, and during which he was asked about whether he was going to Antarctica or not, and he seems to have suggested that he will.
I said, if it's honest, I'll go. I'm not scared of the truth, dude. I'm a flat earther because you can go see mountains from hundreds of miles away consistently. It doesn't add up. The math doesn't add up. So anyway, and
Can I bring it back?
I don't know how that's going to manifest, but as of now, it looks like it could be me and Jeren going with, I guess, Dave McKeegan or something. But
Well, I give you.
and when we don't see the 24-hour sun,
although currently nothing's official. Now let's get into where flat earthers have been trying to dismiss the final experiment because they say that Will is a liar. Now, this came about because the first bits of information about the final experiment were all done anonymously. It wasn't until after the full concept and the list of who was invited to take part had all been unveiled that Will then revealed himself to be the one behind it. However, prior to this, he'd appeared on a different channel where he'd actually brought up talk of the final experiment, and the host had asked if he knew who was behind it, and he said he didn't. Which is understandable. He's bound to want to build interest in this trip, and he would have already had a plan in place for gradually unveiling it all. So I can see why he would not want to unravel all of that by then answering this question. But flat earthers have been quick to dismiss the whole trip on account of that incident because they say Will can't be trusted. It is a bit of a ridiculous excuse because Will is not organising the trip. That's all being taken care of by a private company. He is merely providing the funds. In fact, for transparency, let me share some emails with you. Now, there are private bits of these between Will and ALE, so I'm only going to show the relevant bits. But almost immediately after I had accepted the offer of going, I received an email from Will, which was also sent to one of the employees at Antarctic Logistics, whereby he confirmed that I would be going, that a deposit which had already been paid would be used to cover my place, and that Will would be paying for the remainder of the balance, and he also requested that ALE send over the relevant forms to myself, shortly after which I received those emails directly from ALE. These were personal information, medical information forms required, so whichever flat earther accepts to take the place will be dealing with ALE directly, not going through Will. So any doubts they have about his honesty shouldn't actually be a factor because they won't really be dealing with him. I know Jeren had concerns about potential costs coming back to him, though Will has publicly stated on both his and Jeren's channel that he will be covering all of the costs. So not only the ALE part and the winter clothing, but he's also going to be booking the flights to and from Chile, as well as the accommodation while we're there. So nothing actually directly links to us needing to pay anything. I have it in writing from Will to ALE that he will be paying for me to go, and he's booking the flights and accommodation to and from Chile, which will all need to be paid for up front. So worst case scenario, if Will doesn't pay for it, I don't go, but I won't be out of pocket. And the daft thing is, this is a publicly available trip through ALE. Anybody can go along with us if they want to. They'll just have to fund themselves. But if they have such serious concerns about Will's integrity, they could fund their own private spot on the trip. Flat Earth Dave for ages had his 2 Bitcoin challenge, whereby anybody who could provide proof of the globe would get 2 bitcoins from him. And Dave himself has said a 24-hour Antarctic sun would prove the globe. Well, 2 bitcoins is currently worth about $134,000. That's enough for about 3 trips to Antarctica. So he could go there on the same trip as us, but funded entirely by himself, and he will either prove the Earth is flat, or will provide himself with the proof that the Earth is a globe, and would win his own Bitcoin challenge before somebody else does. Now, I can get behind Jaron's argument of not wanting to go by himself and not wanting to be surrounded by a bunch of globers. That's fair enough. But I think the way that all of this is unfolding is a bit ridiculous. I mean, firstly, to expect Will to then pay for an entirely another person on top of already offering to pay for essentially 2 complete strangers to go is pushing it. Will very generously has said that he will give up his own spot on a trip that he's funding so that Austin can go with Jaron, which is crazy generous. But I think it's ridiculous to then try and demand that, no, Will actually needs to go and that I shouldn't go. I mean, you know, it's Will's money at the end of the day. If he decides that he wants to drop me from the trip and take Austin and Jaron, I'm not going to argue with it. It's his money at the end of the day. I mean, I think they should just be glad that one of them is getting a free place and crowdfund the other one if they want more people going. Austin was already talking about going to Antarctica this December and trying to plan a trip there this December. Well, that's only 6 months away. So if he was actually planning on doing that should already be in motion. He should have already started saving up and gathering funds to be able to do that. You are not doing that on a whim out of nowhere. I mean, they don't even seem to be trying to entertain the notion of crowdfunding at all. They could try a crowdfund and see if they could raise enough to take Austin as well. And then that would be me, Will, Jaron, and Austin all going, as well as anybody else that wants to go. Whilst no flat earthers so far that I know of have tried to crowdfund, I do know of at least 2 people on the Globe side who are wanting to come and join us. Globey McGlobeface and Critical Think both have started GoFundMes to try and join the same ALE trip as us so that we can expand the experiments that can be done. Now, it would be nice to have at least one of them come along with me just to balance it out in the event that Jaron and Austin do wind up coming with me. So, I will link both of their GoFundMes in the description down below. If you'd like to come and help them out, that would be fantastic. Any of you amazing people who super chat my videos, I would ask you consider putting that money instead towards their GoFundMes, although no pressure, entirely understandable if you'd prefer not to. And lastly, I know a few people have queried what happens if no flat earthers are willing to go. Well, I checked with Will, and as I expected, he said the trip will still go ahead with or without them. Even if it's just Will and myself going, we can still go and prove that there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, or if there isn't. So flat earthers burying their heads in the sand is not going to save them from this. It's exciting times ahead, and I'll probably do another video closer to the time with updates, including who eventually is joining us. Speaking of which, like I said, don't forget to consider supporting Globey McGlobeface and Critical Think's GoFundMes, which will be linked down below. Also, feel free to leave any suggestions or questions you have in the comments below. If you haven't already, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and then hopefully we'll see you in the next video.